This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, the Citizen Net Reporter, here with the day after Thanksgiving White Plains Week. And now the headlines for Black Friday, November 29th, 2019. Who will run for David Buchwald's seat if he goes to Congress? More apartments and traffic ahead on Westchester Avenue. Will this be good or bad for White Plains? Commissioner of Planning Chris Gomez reports on what's going up, affordable housing increases planned, and we have video of the commissioner. A guaranteed tax cut for the town of Greenburgh. Meanwhile, the county is silent on why they expect a $160 million increase in sales tax revenues in 2020. Homes in White Plains priced at over $800,000 are getting their price and not having to cut it as much. Lowering price of homes under $800,000 is stabilizing. Traffic commissioner says bike traffic is up. Red light cameras making us a safer city, and there are now lights at pedestrian crossings making their appearances around town. And now, City Limits introduces the Smokehouse Burger, an event that we had to skip last week, but it's too much. Meanwhile, on to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time. And there he is, His Majesty, the turkey, ready to start the Thanksgiving dinner yesterday at a home in White Plains, New York, USA. And it was a very great day because family gets together and we enjoy each other and realize how much we need to each other. But the development of the week that intrigued me the most was a proposed development for the Lifetime corporate park, and there it is. 3 WPD apartments and Marcus Partners and Trammell Crow Residential is planning to demolish a 160,000 square foot vacant office building at 3 Westchester Park Drive and replace it with a 5-story, 2-building complex featuring 450 rental apartments. The 5% of those apartments would be affordable, but it is right at the entrance to the Corporate Park Drive, leading up to Lifetime Fitness, and also it's very close by to the apartments going up to the east of the Corporate Park Drive, where Wegmans is supposed to go in, plus more apartments. Now, I can tell you that Westchester Avenue stretch leading up to 3 Corporate Drive is pretty zippy in the afternoons when you're leaving it or going into it. So that calls to mind, how is traffic going to be when that sets up? And that is in Harrison, by the way. Harrison encroachment, approaching closer and closer to White Plains, but Harrison is getting the advantage of those apartment buildings. And of course, the store, Wegmans coming in. Now, the Commissioner of Planning, Chris Gomez, made a report on what's going up. So in light of what we just told you about, here is Chris Gomez addressing the Westchester, Getty Association last week on the developments that have been started in White Plains. Here's the Commissioner.
A basic map of our downtown. This is somewhat dated at this point, but these are a lot of the tax parcels that are kind of undergoing redevelopment or seeing some kind of serious capital investment. I'm going to hit a couple of these. I don't have the time to go through everything we have going on, but I figured it was most appropriate this evening to talk about, to start with the projects that are underway. So if you're driving through downtown White Plains, you'll notice we have several cranes in the air. The city had a ribbon cutting or groundbreaking on Friday for the Brookfield Commons Phase 2, which is a large 129 rental unit building at Brookfield Commons, formerly known as the Winbrook Housing Complex. So that's very exciting for us as we continue to rehabilitate the campus. You'll also see just south of the train station at the Continuum at 55 Bank Street. The second phase is also rising, and that's going to be an additional 309 market rate units. Units total, 63 of which will be affordable in the city's affordable housing program. That large construction project at the corner of Post and Mamaroneck in the heart of our downtown is also under construction. That's formerly the Broadstone, soon to be known as the Mitchell. They keep changing the name, but it's 434 units with a significant portion of retail that's going to really be an iconic piece of that corner of Post and Mamaroneck Avenue. And then the final building under construction, you might have noticed, is at the White Plains Hospital. That's a hospital office building. It's about 225,000 square feet of office space and doctor's offices for the hospital. So that's, again, very exciting. The last project on Bloomingdale Road that's currently under construction is the Waterstone. It's a 132-unit building that's age restricted. They're marketing it to folks they claim in the 70s or 80s that still want an independent living opportunity with some amenities. So if you want to downsize, for example, from your home and still live independently with your own kitchen, but also have the ability to sort of age in place and not have to move, they're going to offer amenity packages where folks can get the meals, etc. on site. So that's kind of a new product and something we're leading the way with here in White Plains. City Square, which is that whole block, again, between Martine and Main. Basically, there's a rehab or basically a repositioning of some of the office space there into residential, as well as excitingly, I think for the city, really kind of marking that corner right there at Lexington and Main Street with a new retail space. Currently, it's kind of an underutilized open space with some retail, and they're going to actually build that out to some restaurant space and hopefully bring some vitality to that corner. Two projects that are currently in front of the Common Council, you'll probably see coming soon, is a large mixed-use project at Water Street, immediately adjacent to the White Plains train station parking structure. There's an office building currently that's being demolished, and that's going to be a tower with retail, a residential tower with 24 affordable units, 277 market rate units. And then the last one is the existing YMCA property. So 250 Mamaroneck Avenue has been purchased, and they're currently before the Common Council to redevelop the site with some retail and 177 dwelling units.
They started, and now the Bank Street building is now, I believe, up to 7 floors. So that is proceeding at the rate of 1 floor a week. Capelli Construction handling that. If you want something built fast, you get Louis Capelli. Now, what is ahead that the Commissioner mentioned? First of all, we are going to see new affordables coming in. If you can have that slide. There we are. And the dark brown colored buildings are the existing affordable housing unit buildings, and the pictures and the numbers in the pictures indicate the new developments and how much more they're going to add. Next slide. And that is going to make a 200% increase in the number of affordable housing units at these various locations we just showed you. And also coming up that the commissioner mentioned is they are going to have a new comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. And the consolidated plan is scheduled to be presented March 19th, a draft of the consolidated plan. There will be a public hearing on April the 7th and a plan adoption May the 4th. So call up the city and find out more about this plan and put in your 2 cents worth. I'm sure they'd like your input. And also, the city is codifying amendments in the city code for extending all multi-family development of 10 plus units in the city applicable to have affordable housing as part of them. And that is a big change. And this is some of the things he spoke about. We hope to get that up on our website, the entire presentation of the commissioner, shortly. Now, coming up next, regarding real estate, let's take a look at this flyer put out by Weichert Realtors. It lists sales going in, closed sales in White Plains going back to April. And what we learned from this, there are 19 sales here, mostly all residential, and what it indicated, although some houses had to cut their prices drastically from the list prices up to 5% and all that, others cut their list price much less. In fact, homes over $800,000 that sold for over $800,000 only had to cut their price an average of 1.26%. That is really an indication of price stabilization. And homes selling for under $800,000, again, just about 2.42. And also, of the 117, the under $800,000 homes usually only spent about 117 days on the market. That is not too bad, because that is homes that are mainly appeal to persons looking for a house for the first time, and they have tough times getting mortgages. And now, if you sold a house over $800,000, you only have to wait 79 days on average. So that is intriguing. The sales are picking up, and the inventory now is a good time for the inventory to start going up, and look and discuss how to put it on the market. My thinking is, if you are thinking of leaving White Plains in the next 2 to 3 or 4 years, get your house in shape and put it up and see what happens. If you don't have to leave right away, you're in good shape to get the price you need and preserve what little equity is left of your home. Okay, now, we also find out that Paul Feiner, of all people, came out, that great friend of the taxpayer, the man who created the town of Greenberg reval, which cost thousands of homeowners thousands of dollars in property tax because the reval did not work out as they thought it would. So, bearing that in mind, we just wonder whether he can guarantee the tax cut that he proposes, and that he came out with this week. Now, the other thing that intrigued me about tax cuts and property taxes was that last week we told you about the deficits that the Robert Astorino administration ran back in 2016 and 2017, which was approved by the Democratic-controlled legislature in both years, and also which they also approved by essentially dumping his plan for paying for it, leasing the airport. Now, what is intriguing to me was I found out that the county is really being very optimistic. They propose a budget predicting a 27.9% increase in sales tax receipts in 2020. That is a preposterously high increase, and we wonder what the basis is for it. So what we did is we called up the County Department of Communications and asked this question. And it's been 5 days now, and they have not gotten back to us how they justify the sales tax dollars going up by 27.9%. Now, if the county if the county stays with the present budget and the Board of Legislators do not pay attention to it and ask this question, how can you justify a 27.9% increase in sales tax receipts? If the property 1% tax, 1% property tax that was sales tax, the sales tax that was increased in August will only generate about maybe about $10 million. And that is far less than the $160 million that is projected by this sales tax receipts prediction. So that means that even if things improve in the sales tax, you might be running, okaying $150 million deficit next year. That makes Robert Astorino's deficits look paltry in comparison. So, is this perhaps a road for the county to introduce the disastrous concept of reval, which automatically increases taxes for the more valuable properties, and hopefully will raise the taxes equally for the businesses? It didn't happen in Greenburgh, so if they ever introduce that, the citizens have to be very wary of that. Reval does not work unless you have a very homogeneous town with no industry. And a wealthy town at that, I might add. So that's a question for the future. Pay attention to legislators. As I recall, at the end of The Sun Also Rises, Jake Barnes, the foreign correspondent in Ernest Hemingway's epic novel, The Sun Also Rises, has the perfect analysis of the Westchester County budget that they take up this month. Brett, Jake's lover, over drinks in a cafe in Paris, tells Jack at a sidewalk cafe in Paris they could have had a damn good time together. Jack, staring at the beautiful Brett, answers as one of the great last lines of all time. Isn't it pretty to think so? Budgets are very pretty when you start, unless you count. The county has to learn to count and project. They have made this mistake for years, and they're about to make it big time. So, moving on. Another intriguing matter that nobody is really thinking of is the David Buchwald March to Congress. There is David Buchwald, who is apparently a very likely candidate to succeed Nita Lowey in her seat in Congress, and we wonder who will replace Mr. Buchwald if he goes to Congress. And the first look you have to look at is the Common Council, because What would happen would be you could run a member of the White Plains Common Council for the assembly seat that Mr. Buchwald will vacate. Now, one of the veterans of the Common Council, John Martin, but he's been in the Common Council for a long time, long experience. He's a possibility. The question is, would he? Does he want to? And there's Jason Brash, who is new on the council. He is second from the right, but really is sort of just getting his feet wet. But he's a nice fellow, and who knows? He could be nominated, appointed to the Common Council. He could run for the assembly seat. He could run for the assembly seat. And then there is John Kirkpatrick on the right. He has also been on the council a long time, and he was also appointed to his seat on the Common Council, and he could possibly consider a run for the assembly. But I think the most likely candidate is Nadine Hunt Robinson on the far right in green, and there are two other new Common Council members who have experience in the private sector, but are coming on the council. They're untried, but who knows? And Benjamin Boykin, who is chair of the County Board of Legislators, who apparently he is probably getting boosted up to about $140,000 in salary, and that is a lot lower than the assembly salary, I believe. And so there you have it. That's a big question. Who will step up and run for the assembly seat if Mr. Buchwald wins the congressional race for Lenita Lowey's seat? Something to think about. And on the other hand, perhaps being in the assembly is a place where you can do the least harm as a legislator. Now, we also had a discussion with Tom Soik in front of the Gedney Association annual meeting last night. And Tom Soik, the Commissioner of Traffic, I call him that because basically that's what he is, though that's not his title. And he talks about bikes and how successful they are in White Plains, and two other intriguing matters. Here is Tom Soik.
Bikes recently. I get a lot of people tell me, oh, nobody's ever in those bike lanes. But the truth is, we've actually increased bike usage by about 200% in the last 5 or 6 years. And you would think that would increase the accidents and injuries of bicycles. In fact, they've actually gone down. And I think that's because we've created a little more awareness for people who are riding bikes. They're having the bike lanes, having the facilities, makes drivers more aware that there are bike riders out there. And as you get an increase in numbers, again, people are more aware. In fact, there's only been, one part of that program was to institute a bike share program. And I know people get a little upset with line bikes. They're all over the place. Sometimes some people call them line bike litter. But the truth is, it was probably a little bit hard to get used to at the beginning. It has settled down quite a bit. I think they've learned in terms of where to put those bikes. And there was only one incident over the last year and a half of a bike rider that had an accident with one of the line bikes. And they typically get about 300 rides a day on a weekday, and maybe in the 200, 250 range on the weekends. So they're getting a lot of usage. They also have implemented an e-bike service, which has an electric pedal assist function. And you probably notice these bikes, they have a little bit bigger back to it. There's a battery charged, and those have become very popular. In fact, I believe out of the 250 or so bikes that are out there now, I think there's only about 35 that are still a regular bike that they are operating. Okay, but that's been a very successful program. And we are in the process of installing our first physically separated bike lane. That'll be on the south side of Martine Avenue for several blocks, and it'll be a two-way bike lane with a separate median. And that will better connect some of the existing bike lanes that we put on some of the other roads, many of which are running north-south right now in the downtown area. I'd say one last thing that I'm going to talk about that is relatively new are these rectangular rapid flashing beacons, RRFBs. You probably noticed one near Roosters Market. Did anyone notice that? Yeah. Okay. Those, you have to push the button to activate them, and they're more effective at locations where people are crossing because the lights are on when there's a person that's actually crossing. And they've proven to be very effective across the country. That was one of the first locations. We also have one on Lake Street. We just recently installed one at the school, the Mamaroneck Avenue School.
How about that? Lights that light up when there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk. That would be good because the pedestrians take full advantage of those crosswalks, but they sometimes are not wary of cars that might not see them, particularly at night, wearing dark clothing. But now I want to talk about an incredible event that took place at the restaurant that is sometimes the after-show hangout for the White Plains Week crew, and that is this incredible blast-off. It is the new City Limits Smokehouse Burger. This is a work of art, ladies and gentlemen, and you might ask what's in it. Here's the lineup. You start off with the City Limits bun, and then comes pulled pork covered with barbecue sauce, a giant onion ring, a half-pound Angus burger topped with pepper jack cheese, and then rounding out with a lettuce, onion, and tomato. It goes where no burger has ever gone before, beyond the outer limits, and it's you know, it's just to be seen, to be believed. Now, this was a scene in a house in White Plains on Thanksgiving Day, and it's really great to see a table set with Thanksgiving trappings and the fellowship that goes with a Thanksgiving Day gathering. It's something that really is one of the warmest holidays of the year, and just everybody feeling grateful for being together again one more year and remembering those of the past. But it's also something to remember years ago in 1620 is when the Mayflower docked at Plymouth. I shot this picture in 2005 on a visit to Plymouth, and it is important to remember on this Thanksgiving that we remember the band of hardy, intrepid souls who crossed an ocean in a boat no bigger than a large Chris craft and settled in an unforgiving landscape and started a country in the cold landscape of New England. They were immigrants. They were helped by Indians who welcomed them, without whom they would not have survived. And remember, I salute this brave band. A salute, too, to the Indians who accepted them without visas, without jobs, without background checks, no border wall, no fear on the part of the Indians and their humanitarian leader, Squanto. It is one of the great humanitarian stories of all time. John Bailey for Jim Benroff for White Plains Week. Good night.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.